Hey, what's up? This is Brian Kuzmar with Commercial Rare Coins and Precious Metals in beautiful Lauderdale by the Sea. I got the live Coral Cam up today for Monday, and hope your weekend was really nice. God, it was sunny, not a lot of rain, not as much as it has been for the last couple weeks. And it's starting to cool down a little bit, which is even nicer. Well, not much to talk about today in precious metals, news-wise or anything. I mean, economically, politically, there's not a lot of news out there. Just the SOS, same old shit on a shingle, whatever you want to call it. Markets are kind of sideways too. It's the same thing with markets overall. I haven't been following equities markets this last week, but if it's anything like precious metals markets, kind of blah. Actually, we're not seeing a lot of action either way, downward or upward. We're in that 1750 range right now with gold. It's been give or take $10. She's made some moves up to $30 or so, but 1750, 1800 is kind of like a range bound. It seems that way for the last month now or so. Where silver's been a bit more volatile, going down to low 20s to the high, up to 23 and back and forth. But that's silver. That's what silver does. However, silver's kind of been in range bound as well, 2040 to 2080. 20, right in that mid 20s range, a little higher, sometimes a little lower. And platinum just like sideways. It's like a flat road in Texas, so kind of what we're looking at right now. So not a lot to talk about, not even in the news. So I'm going to skip over and I'm going to share my reading list with you. I don't even want to read this stuff today. Again, not a lot to read. SOS, same old stuff. So I'm going to just kind of do a share Brian's reading list and go over a few other things. Maybe I'll hit a few subjects. Let's move along from here. And not a lot to see here, folks. Move along. Buy local, of course, is my mantra. On my videos right here. I'm a big fan of local coin stores, local bullion stores. Find yourself a good local person, and that's because I am local. Of course, I'm going to be biased towards buying local, and there's a couple other good reasons for it too. One of the reasons I don't order online as much as I used to. I'd rather go in town to try to find stuff where I can and buy stuff locally. Keep that money local. For example, when you come into my store, I'm in South Florida. I only deal local. We don't deal online. We advertise to be Atmex, JM, and SD. Yes, that was a shameless plug, but let me go on from there. When you come in and purchase from us, that money, I got employees here. I'm paying I'm paying local taxes. Not a big fan of taxes. I'm sure you're not either. But at least the taxes being paid are local and do stay supposedly in this immediate area. When I make money myself, I go out and I spend it locally on the things I like to do. Fishing, tropical fish. I like keeping tropical fish. I like fishing as well. That's funny. I like catching my pets. And I like surfing. I like a bunch of different things. I just recently bought a motorcycle, too, from a local dealership, Riva Motorsports, in fact. The money does stay local here, and that's why I always recommend trying to keep it local, folks, even if it's not just precious metals. Let me share some of my reading list here, and I had a couple issues with the memory on my machine going on and off, so I'm apologize for being late here. However, I got some issues here with memory. My pages. I did a couple takes already, and the pages just froze up. I couldn't do anything. But it looks like it's working okay so far. 2 articles in Seeking Alpha. I like Seeking Alpha. I've been reading it for a long time. I recently subscribed to them. I think it's a worthy subscription rate, what they have. It doesn't break the bank. And there's a lot of good stuff out there. And besides, I've been reading some of their stuff for free. And you can read, I think, a lot of these articles for free. This is Peter Schiff right here. Talks about, I'll talk about the takeaways if you want to read the rest of the article. Looks like we've got some freeze up again, folks. Well, I'm not going to sit here and wait for Seeking Alpha to load. Let's move along to, sorry about, there we go. It almost loaded, it didn't load. See what I'm talking about? Getting some issues here. Maybe it's the website. Another guy I like to read is Charles Hugh Smith. He writes some really good stuff, and his blog is called Of Two Minds. He's got his own personal blog, so you don't have to. I believe you can read it for free. It's not a subscription. He does ask for donations, but I think he's got some advertising on here, which he gets paid for, which is a good thing for him. But he writes some good stuff. Sorry, Fed, inflation is already embedded. And maybe I will read some of this, because I don't read Charles Hughes stuff very often. because it doesn't directly apply to precious metals, but it does economically. And again, I'm recommending that you put him on your bookmark bar because he does some really good articles. All right. The Fed and its minions are about to get what they do richly deserve, the full blame for the coming catastrophe. The key justification for the Fed's zero interest rate policy is that inflation is transitory. Sorry, Fed, inflation is already embedded, i.e., inflation is now a self-reinforcing feedback loop. Prices leaps trigger wage increases, demands, supply constraint expectations are now built into the wholesale cost increases, and all these increase the wholesale and the retail wage costs. And wage costs drive each other higher as participants now understand that higher wholesale costs drive higher retail prices, which feed wages, which feed. This is a self-feeding frenzy is what Charles is talking about. And the fact that we've been going through inflation for quite some time. I mean, you remember when gas used to be less than $1 an ounce. I mean, dollar an ounce. Gosh, that's boy, that's the future. Maybe $1 a gallon. Okay. And 50 cents a gallon, Coca-Cola was a quarter, even a nickel in my parents' time, I think, a nickel, dime, or 15 cents or something like that. I mean, you can't even buy a bottle of water now for $1 or $2. It's pretty sad. No less, we've had inflation for a long time, but this particular inflation that we're having is being driven by the closures that we had in 2020, the boneheaded move by politicians and dummies all over the world. Just shut everything down and stop being a productive world. We'll pay the piper on that. But let me move along here. The conventional consensus hold that globalization and technology are deflationary, but globalization is no longer deflationary as fragile supply chains logjam and break and prices on the margins soar as demand skyrockets due to hoarding and attempts to restock depleted inventories. Again, what Charles is pointing out here is this loop, this feeding frenzy on itself that we're seeing right here. That these log jams are going to cause prices to skyrocket as well. And as for technology, the move to remote work is only selectively deflationary. For an example, demand for commercial office space has cratered. And we know that. If you look around, you'll see a lot of commercial real estate offered in a lot of different places here, especially small businesses. All right, so driving lease rates off a cliff. That's basically what it's done. But in the larger scheme of things, the major advance in tech has been the concentrated in social media, which is arguably reducing productivity rather than increasing productivity. I'm going to share a story with you here probably in the next week or two about that being absolutely true, that social media can absolutely be a time suck, and it doesn't benefit us at all. The only benefit we get from it is maybe communicating with each other, but that's being limited to a lot of degree as well. Let's move along here. Charles says, digitizing everything under the sun has made everything dependent on components which are now scarce. Scarcity is driven by multiple factors, which include planned obsolescence, so profitable when supply chains are functioning smoothly, not so profitable when supply chains are constrained. Agonizingly long lead times to build out semiconductor fabs and exploit new sources of minerals, energy, etc. Trillions of dollars in stimulus driving demand higher, which then feeds hoarding and inventory building, further pressuring supplies and disruption triggered by everything from the pandemic to shortages of energies. American workers have been strip mined and abused for 40 years in a classic boiling the frog fashion, and I can't argue with that. And now they've finally had enough. The Great Resignation, like other drivers of inflation, is complex and cannot be reduced to a single cause. Like the other systematic drivers of inflation, labor refusing to work for low pay and being treated like a pack of animals has been a long time coming, and there are no quick fixes of the sort pundits promote. And Charles is pointing out the fact that a lot of people, they're taking this stimulus and they're just saying, screw it, I'm not going to go back to work for $10 an hour, $12 an hour, And you know what? A lot of people can say that's laziness, and I'd rather have some money than no money, but there's a case to be made here, folks, that, if you're working for $10 an hour, $12 an hour, $20 an hour, I mean, in some parts of, you couldn't even survive for $20 an hour in certain parts of the country, in major cities, in certain areas. And I'm not talking about the rich areas. You couldn't survive. You couldn't even begin to survive in areas like that. You couldn't feed yourself. You couldn't. So, what do you go to work for? You go to work to just end up homeless anyway, just going backwards, taking, getting one step forward and two step backs. That's kind of what we're looking at right now. It has not a lot to do with business per se. It has a lot to do with politics and the economics of politics. This is the reason that we've got these major issues. And what we've got going on out here is not we don't have capitalism going on no longer in the United States. We have crony capitalism going on. We have government in bed with certain institutions, certain entities, and they get favored treatment, and basically that's how it works nowadays. That's called crony capitalism, folks. That's not real capitalism. But I digress big time here off Charles's article here. And let's see what Charles says here. Now that inflation expectations are embedded, there's no going back. Touting bogus inflation statistics, we took out everything that went up in cost, and look, inflation is low. It's not going to reverse the understanding that inflation is here to stay. Absolutely true, but inflation never left us, so it's not like it just showed up recently. Inflation's been with us a long time, and a lot of people will tie it to gold. When Nixon took us off the gold standard, the buying power of the dollar went down dramatically since then. So, it's not the cost of products that's gone up so much as and it is kind of, but it's what the dollar can buy is less and less and less. So the value of the dollar is crap. So if the dollar of the value is crap, that means what you get paid is going to be crap. Everything's denominated in dollars. And again, the dollar is worthless. I mean, it's freaking crap now. It doesn't buy shit. Remember what it used to buy? And it's easy for the Fed and government to blame inflation on business and employees and the cost of hiring a person. But the fact is they destroyed the dollar, folks. It buys a fraction of what it once was. If the dollar bought the same thing it did a decade, two decades, 3 decades ago, this wouldn't be an issue. Again, I digress. Let me see if I can get through Charles's article here. Yes, I can, without hogging up 80 minutes of your time. 80 minutes? I don't know where I come up with 80 minutes. All right, that's an hour and 20. So now that participants understand their income will buy less in the future, they have a powerful motivation to buy something tangible now, while the price is lower than it will be next year. A motivation that increases demand. And that's kind of what we're seeing here with cars, especially. I went out to look for cars this weekend, folks. And again, I digress on these articles quite often, but I went out to look for cars and stuff, man. The Toyota lot owned by Berkshire Hathaway, and it's called Deerfield Toyota here. And I didn't know it was actually owned by Warren Buffett's group. So I went in there. The lot was empty. There's no Camrys because it's the most popular car in Florida. There was nothing on the lot. Some of the used car guys had more stuff than these guys had. And if you go out and offer up and look for a used car, it's almost impossible. I'm not buying right now. I'm going to wait till everything comes online and just fix what I have for now. But meanwhile, that doesn't help the economy either. So let's take a look at what Charles says here, not what Brian keeps interjecting. And now that participants understand, let's see, now that participants understand their income will buy less in the future, they have a powerful motivation to buy something tangible now, and is what we were just talking about, and pushes costs higher, which then reinforces the incentive to convert earnings into something real before the Fed destroys even more of the purchasing power. Wage earners have no choice but to demand higher wages to partly offset soaring costs. And employers who refuse find employees are leaving en masse. Those who increase wages must raise prices to offset their hiring. Again, Charles is pointing out here this huge feeding frenzy on itself. I mean, this inflation feeds upon itself. Lack of employment, people leaving, costs going up dramatically, the dollar going down. This is just all a kind of like if you're throwing a carcass inside a river with piranha. It's just a self-feeding thing, and then the piranha start eating themselves. I don't know if they do that, but this is not a good deal. Meanwhile, taxes, junk fees, user fees, etc. only ratchet higher. They never decline ever. Participants understand that the ratchet effect this also drives demand for higher wages. And taxes, junk fees, user fees. Well, when less people are working, there's no income tax, folks. Where do you think they're going to get that money from? Especially since they're paying out so much in stimulus and paying people not to work, or they were paying for people's rents, paying for this, paying for that. So where if people aren't working, and a lot of the taxes derive from income tax, where are they going to get that money? Well, it's going to be user fees. It's going to be these little taxes on things you buy. Already, the states are collecting tax for each other, which is collecting interstate tax, which I believe is unconstitutional. I don't care how they spun it. So when governments, when the state governments can circumvent or make some kind of legal loophole that was never intended to charge people sales tax in Idaho for buying in the state of Florida or vice versa, that's we live in a failed state. And honestly, I believe we actually at current we're in a failed state, folks. Corporate America has, that's my opinion, not Charles's, corporate America has pushed this shrinkflation gimmick for years to mask the loss of purchasing power. Exactly what we were talking about, the loss of purchasing power of the dollar. But that gimmick is wearing thin. People are waking up and noticing that there is a 10% less in every package. Now this is shrinkflation. Oh, he's talking about the shrinkflation gimmick. I'm talking about the currency shrinkflation. He's talking about like when you go, I went to buy some Haagen-Dazs ice creams. They used to be like these large popsicle type things. Now they're like the size of my finger. Packaging's the same. It looks like you're getting the same amount, but man, you know, they think people are going to fall for this. I don't think so. Sip of coffee here. Hang on one second. Simply put, the Fed blew it. The inflationary drivers outlined above were all painfully obvious a year ago, and the Fed did nothing but enrich that already super wealthy to the tune of tens of trillions of dollars. This is crony capitalism, folks. When the Fed bails out their buddies, or when the government bails out their buddies, or makes special rules for their buddies, or whatever, or tells you that you have to deal with this insurance company or you'll get fined. That's crony capitalism. But let's see here. While and the Fed did nothing enrich the already super wealthy to the tune of tens of trillions of dollars while ripping out the heart of the bottom 90% who depend on pensions, disability, Social Security, of wages, none of it which keep pace with real world inflation. The Fed and its minions are about to get what they so richly deserve, the full blame for the second coming catastrophe. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. We're going to see the second coming catastrophe, folks. You think 2008, and this goes off into my opinion, not Charles. By the way, great articles this man writes. Definitely highly recommend it. Up to Minds. You can read this stuff for free. You're welcome to donate to his site. I don't get paid to offer this. I just said I'm going to share some of my reading with you. I think if you read this man, you'll be much smarter than the average bear. This article is called Sorry Fed Inflation Rate is Already Embedded. Definitely worth reading. And as I said, folks, I think we're in a failed state. I think we got a lot of big issues going on here. Let's move over to ZH. And of course, okay. There's so much in the world, economically, politically out there, even in corporate media, that's parasitic, that's predatory. They're not producers anymore. At one time, the Fourth Estate, which would be the who eventually morphed into the corporate media, crony media. It used to, well, anyways, they used to be productive. They used to produce things for us. They used to the media used to give us useful facts. They used to they don't do that anymore. They're trying to crack down on media that's not directly controlled by big entities. So corporate media is still on the march to with propaganda and to feed you a single narrative. No less. Wow, sorry about that. Didn't mean to go off on them again. I do that quite often. So a lot of parasites and a lot of predators out there in the world, and a lot of producers still. Producers like myself, small business people, producers like you, guys that work hard with their business, guys that work hard at their job, guys that pay their taxes, guys that do the right thing. We're producers in the world, folks, and these predators and parasites out there, and again, most in the media, these guys and these guys, whether it's United States or whether it's somewhere in the world, they're just predators, folks. Predators and parasites, one or the other, and they can be a little bit of both at sometimes too. So what's going to eventually happen is they're going to drive the productive people underground, or they're going to drive the productive people into retirement, or what did they call it? Going Galt. If you're not familiar with the term going Galt, here let me kind of pull that. Some folks may not be familiar with going Galt. Let's see what going Galt says. Going Galt. I'm sure that there's going to be something on here. Going Galt means shrugging off unearned guilt, refusing to support your own destroyers. And here, let me click that, the Atlas Society. There we go. Okay. What is going Galt? All right, ready? Going Galt doesn't simply mean getting angry. That would be going postal. It means having righteous indignation at the injustice of a political system that bails out individuals and institutions for irresponsible behavior and at the expense of those like you who prosper through hard work and personal responsibility. Going Galt means asking in the face of new taxes and government control, why work at all? For whom am I working? Am I a slave? Going Galt means recognizing that you're being punished not for your vices, but for your virtues. Going Galt means recognizing that you have a moral right to your own life, the pursuit of your own happiness, and thus to the rewards you've earned with your labor. Going Galt means recognizing that you deserve praise and honor for your achievements rather than damnation as exploiters. Going Galt means recognizing that you do not need to justify your life or wealth to your neighbors, society, politicians, bureaucrats. They're yours, period. Going Galt means recognizing the need of others. Do not give them a claim to your time, effort, and achievements. Going Galt means shrugging off unearned guilt, refusing to support your own destroyers, refusing to give them what Ayn Rand termed the sanction of the victim. It means taking the moral high ground by explicitly rejecting as evil the premise of self-sacrifice that they sell to you as a virtue. In fact, self-sacrifice is an invitation to suicide. Folks, I believe this 100%. I think at some point that these parasites and these parasites and predators are going to drive producers, hardworking folks, small business people, and everyone to going Galt. And at that point, they have control over nothing. They have no tax base. They have, if you just pick up all your toys and say "F you," I'm not going to be a productive citizen anymore while you're in control, they got nothing, folks. You can just go fishing for a year or two or 6 years or whatever for the rest of your life. What do they have after that? Nothing. So what they are risking here, what the predators and the parasites in the world are risking out here, is they're risking us going Galt. And I hope I gave you a good explanation what Galt is. I got to tell you, sometimes it's in the back of my mind as well. Another great site that I like to read. Again, I'm sharing my reading list here with you guys. One of the reasons I'm sharing my reading list is because you can teach a man to fish and he eats for a day, or you can give a man a fish, he eats for a day, and you can teach a man to fish, he eats for life. I'm sharing what I read, my experience of doing this for 40 years. Not the political side, economic side, but and I don't tout to be an expert at all. I'm just giving you my opinions on those subjects. But when it comes to precious metals and rare coins, I know my shit. So I share that experience with you as well. And what I'm sharing with you today is my political and economic opinions and where I get my thoughts from. I like AIER. I'm not going to read anything here. I hope that you folks are actually looking at some of these sites here and will consider bookmarking them. I'd love to read you more articles on these. Maybe in the future I'll do a political show. Maybe not. Probably a good idea not to as far as my platform goes. But American Institute of Economic Research, very smart stuff, written by very smart people and not written by some guy sitting in his garage or, the opinion of whatever. And not to say that people in their garages don't have great opinion. I'm not sitting in a garage. And some good stuff here, though. This is interesting. Enduring relevance of Mises and Hayek's critics of socialism. There's no such thing as market. A lot of good articles here. I mean, you could get lost in their stuff for a day here. And actually, if I was to kind of read some of these articles, it would be a 2-day event on with us. Because I like to make comments on every other sentence there. Another site that I don't read enough, but I find interesting is Renegade. Can't tell you a lot about it, but I've seen some stuff on here. Afghanistan, the Graveyard of Empires, the Collapse of Complex Societies, which is kind of a very interesting video. And some good stuff. Again, it's alternatives to corporate media is what I'm showing you here. Different viewpoints, different narratives, different opinions, which is good to have. Remember, corporate media has a single viewpoint. They will occasionally pretend they have a second. Oh, well, here's another side to this. But what they really do is they have a single narrative, a single opinion, a single viewpoint, and it's usually the official viewpoint of whoever their favorite flavored politicians are, or economics or whatever. Okay, so they'll have a second opinion usually, but they'll make fun of it, they'll degrade it, or they'll just kind of like, okay, hey, aren't you entertaining? But generally you get a single narrative. This is why I like to read all these different types of articles and different people's opinions, and I get to choose for myself. It's not chosen for me. And unfortunately, I don't know why America likes to have their news chosen for them, in the form of, here it is, this is the truth, this is the only truth, and everything else is nonsense. And typically, it's not even close to that. Another interesting is the Future of Freedom Foundation. Again, this kind of falls more into political stuff, but they have some interesting things in here about civil liberties. And you got to ask yourself, well, why is Brian talking about civil liberties? Why is Brian talking about freedom of speech, for the First Amendment? Why is Brian talking about all this stuff? Because it's very important, folks. It's very important for us to be able to communicate amongst ourselves. And they're trying to take that ability away from us to communicate amongst ourselves. They want us living off the single point narrative that their corporate media provides. So, you know what I'm looking at? I'm looking right at my coin. I don't even think I did a coin flippy today. I'll have to do that at the end of the show. Sorry about that. So another interesting article for you people that are more kind of political orientated as well. You'll find that interesting. And we'll get into one of my favorite websites as far as gold and silver goes. As I talk about all the time, these are the guys, GATA.org, that know, picture all markets as casinos. You know what I'm saying? And the Fed basically runs a casino more or less. But they talk about who the players are, who fixes the markets. They talked about J.P. Morgan spoofing markets, getting fined for billions of dollars. Way before they even fined, these guys were pointing this stuff out, as were Ted Butler and other very smart people. If you trade in precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, or anything, you need to have this site online. Oddly enough, I saw this article by GATA.org, and I was thinking, what does this have to do with gold and silver? But I think these guys, believe like I do that the suppression of the First Amendments, even if it's done on a corporate level, is very, very dangerous, and that there's a single point narrative out there that we're being forced to kind of try to believe. A vast majority, Americans, they get home at evening and they turn on the news. Whatever their favorite flavor is, whether it's CNN, whether it's Fox, whatever side it is, they turn on their favorite flavor of news, their favorite narrative, and it's brainwashing, folks. I turned the news off 2008, smartest thing I ever did. Corporate news, that is. Haven't watched it since 2008. I like to get my news from various sources online. Doesn't mean I won't read a CNN article and I won't read a Fox article, and I do, but I don't watch the television. Television is a big brainwashing machine. There's no doubt in my mind. Single point narrative by talking heads, and there's something powerful about television that, I have a friend of mine that is my trainer, personal trainer here, and I got to tell you, I asked him, what do you do? He says, well, my routine is I get up in the morning, I turn on the news. I'm not going to tell you what kind of news. And then when he gets home, first thing he does, he turns on the news. And he's not even political. He could care less. I said, why do you do that? Well, I don't know. And a lot of people do that. So folks, turn that box off. Trust me on that. But great site, GATA.org. Highly recommend you read it. And again, I was curious why, but that's not a good thing. I think personally, free Assange. That's my opinion. Free the guy. When you can go to prison or be stuck underneath a prison because you pointed out the truth, even if the truth is not very, if questioning the truth, folks. That's more or less what you got going on there. So. And when people question the truth and they get thrown underneath the jail, you know the system sucks. You know that the state's failed. Special loony coin commemorates gold rush. Stay away from high price like that. That's all I can say about that. And ancient gold treasures from Kazakhstan. The $1 trillion gold coin idea. I've read about this. And we'll look at this real quick because it is a wacky idea. But we're living in a wacky world. We're living in, we're definitely living in a wacky world. What did I say? It was Superman's opposite world. Doggone it, you guys explain to me what name. Bizarro world. We're living in bizarro world, folks, that's for sure. If it's a debt ceiling crisis, then it's time for the craziest solution to the problem. Getting crazy Joe Biden to issue a $1 trillion coin. The idea, which has been around for a decade, is that presidents can issue a $1 trillion commemorative coin, deposit it within the Federal Reserve, and allow the government to keep paying the bills. Well, that's just the kind of magic, financial magic that we need to make happen, folks. Geez, it's not like the Fed hasn't been doing that anyway. Why not the president too? A U.S. Why not all of us? Can I create my own $1 trillion coin? All right, again, I'm going off here. A U.S. government default on its debt would deal a body blow to the economy, resulting in widespread job losses, higher interest rates, economic pain that would last for years. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has predicted a widespread economic catastrophe if the debt ceiling isn't raised. They say that all the time. Just bullshit. Just a way for the Fed to make more money by charging more interest and governments to make more money by increasing the size of government. That's some bullshit. If you ask me, don't raise the debt ceiling. Let these effers go broke in D.C. But that's my opinion. America is in danger of that scenario if a deadlocked Congress won't raise the debt ceiling in time. BS again. So the president does have clear power to issue a commemorative coin. So he can make a $1 trillion coin. I got to tell you, I was starting to read the rest of this, and I just realized, God darn, why am I even reading this nonsense? The truth is, it's probably not far from being could potentially happen. It may not be a coin, but maybe he'll just create some money out of thin air. Why not? Again, the Fed does it. I think eventually these people in the current administration will figure out how to print their own money as well. They certainly print a lot of other BS. So anyway, let's move on from here. Sorry. Interesting article, though, and you can read that on GATA.org. Let me just do a little backspace here. And this is really cool. Roman emperor's gold money holds value even as their sovereignty is long gone. Well, the Roman Empire, massive empire, obviously, out of the Western, I guess you could say the Western empires go. They started the whole empire paying their soldiers and their people in gold and silver. That's how people got paid. That's what their coinage was. And when they went from silver-plated copper or silver-plated, whatever the hell they put in the center of it, and they stopped paying out gold, that was the decline of their empire. Well, folks, you see any similarities there? We're in a similar situation. If you looked at our empire's gold coins, they're worth lots of money. But if you look at our current empire's money, if you look at a $20 gold piece, which was worth $20 then, and I think you could still go to a bank and cash in a $20 gold piece for $20, truthfully. Really, it's still legal tender. You could still use it to pay something, I believe. I don't think it's been stopped as legal tender. It's still redeemable for $20. You wouldn't get the gold value. However, it's worth almost $2,000. You'd be stupid to do that. But if you took the same $20 bill issued the same time that $20 gold piece was made, that $20 bill is worthless. Think about that. Think about the comparisons here. Excuse me one second. Let me throw that door shut so you don't have to hear my phone ringing over there. So this is my opinion. Well, let me move along from here. Again, GATA.org, one of my favorites. Highly recommend you read it. Oh, gosh, we made it to the end of the video today. So, hey, listen, thanks for watching, folks, and I really appreciate it. This is Brian Kuzmar. Call me anytime at 954-493-8811 if you live in my area in South Florida. I'm happy to deal with you. We're here 10 to 4, Mondays through Fridays. If you don't live in my area, unfortunately, I can't buy or sell anything with you unless you come to visit me personally. We don't do any online business, but I do highly recommend you find a good local coin store. Even if you have to drive an hour or two to do it, it's worth it, trust me. Well, that's really about it. I'm going to cut this one short right now, and hey, thanks for watching. Talk to you tomorrow, and have yourself a great day. Bye now.